Imagine this. You meet someone new and your connection is like nothing you've ever felt before. It's exciting, it's deep, it makes you feel so special. But there's a little hiccup. The person you're with doesn't seem to perceive it this way. Or sometimes they do, and other times they don't. You go online, do your research, and conclude they just have an avoidant attachment style. But there's one thing that just doesn't add up. This person has been in a long-term relationship before. Hi guys, I'm Carolina, and I'm telling you a story from the very beginning of my relationship with Gabriel, my formerly avoidant ex, now husband, who I run this YouTube channel with. When we first got together, I knew he had been in a relationship before me that lasted 5 years. 5 years. And there I was, feeling so in love, yet barely making it through year one without breaking up every few months. I remember thinking to myself, he can do it, he's done it before, so why does it feel like he always has one foot out of the door with me? What did she have that I don't? It's a touchy and vulnerable topic to unpack. So if you can relate, leave me a comment so both me and others know we're not alone. Let's dive into a little discomfort. In this video, I'll dispel some myths and explain why avoidants commit to some people and not others. But before we tackle this question, let me reassure you about one thing. Everybody gets insecure in relationships. We all have this deep-rooted fear of being inadequate. We compare ourselves to others and have an urge to compete. A little bit of healthy competition can be motivating, but mostly it isn't healthy. Mostly it just unnecessarily divides us and isolates us. It's not just anxious people who get insecure. Avoidants do too. That's why they might say things like, "You deserve better," or even, "You should find someone who can give you what you need." Avoidants get paralyzed by their own sense of inadequacy too, or by the belief that deep down there's something wrong with them, that they can never be loved the way they want to be loved. We are all in the same boat. We all get insecure in love. But if we're also similar, why do avoidants stay in some relationships and leave others? Because we're only similar when it comes to our emotional needs. We're very different when it comes to the pragmatic ones. Different people have different priorities. Some want to backpack around the world, while others want to build a house or start a family. Some are passionate about their hobbies. Others wish they could spend every waking hour working. Some people are happy dividing responsibilities, being in a relationship where one is a homemaker while the other brings in the money. Others, like myself, have too many trust issues and have to split everything equally. There are many paths in life, but everyone's journey is their sacred choice. They want what they want, and nothing and no one can change this. So, to summarize, there are two aspects of relationships. There is the emotional one, feelings, chemistry, attraction, and there is the pragmatic one, what you want in life, your goals, values, and priorities. When Gabriel and I got together, we actually had very different relationship goals. He got into his first serious relationship at 17, wanting to prove to himself he could make it work. It turned out to be a toxic trauma bond, so when we met, he was freshly burned, hesitant to commit again, wanting to carefully evaluate all his options first. I, on the other hand, was a freshly reformed avoidant. Before Gabriel, my longest relationship was 3 months. I would run from commitment and intimacy, but I had just realized this about myself, and I was finally ready to put in the work and build something real. There we were, completely into each other when it came to feelings and attraction, but on the opposite end of the spectrum when it came to our relationship goals, aligned emotionally, but not pragmatically. When Gabriel and his ex met, they shared the same goal, make a long-term relationship work. When he and I met, we had conflicting ones. I was done exploring and ready to commit. He had barely started. That was our mismatch. We were at different stages and wanted different things at that moment in time. He kept telling me this, but I didn't want to hear it. The thing about avoidance is that they're often not in touch with their feelings. Since they're not using emotions as their compass, They're more likely to stay in relationships where their pragmatic goals align with the other person's. Things like finances, lifestyle, ambition, passions, life direction. But before you guys sharpen your pitchforks and say avoidants just want to use people for personal gain, take a moment. We live in a very real world. We all have pragmatic needs, whether we like it or not. And much like avoidants are out of touch with their feelings, anxious people can live in denial of the pragmatic side of a relationship. We tend to have a romantic view of the world, that love should prevail and conquer all. But love isn't just chemistry and feelings, it's also about partnership and building a life together. If one of you wants to travel the world and the other wants to settle down or start a family, staying together means you'll likely end up blocking each other. The traveler will postpone trips to save money. The one who wants a family will keep waiting for the traveler to feel ready. Pragmatic aspects of a relationship do matter. Avoidants are not wrong to pay attention to them, but they're not everything. I don't believe you can build a happy long term relationship without sufficient chemistry. You need both to work for love to flourish. So now you know avoidants tend to stay in relationships where their pragmatic goals align with their partners, where they both want the same things. But how can you tell if that's your situation? Are your relationship issues stemming predominantly from your attachment styles, or is there a deeper mismatch? Are you simply too different? This question used to bug me a lot, but then I figured out a straightforward way to answer it. Look at what you're fighting about. Every couple fights. That's not the issue. The issue is what the fights are actually about. If your conflicts sound like this: you never listen to me, I feel like you don't care, you're too controlling, I can't give you what you need, why won't you just open up? Those are emotional conflicts. And as painful as they are, they're normal. Every couple, especially an anxious avoidant one, has to learn to navigate these. They don't tell you whether you're aligned or not. They tell you that you're two humans with different emotional wiring trying to figure each other out. That's workable. But if your conflicts sound more like this: you keep fighting about where you want to live, how much money is enough, how many hours one of you works, how involved your families are, whether you want kids or not, what kind of lifestyle you're building, that's a different conversation entirely. These aren't attachment issues, these are value differences. And no amount of healing your attachment style will resolve them because they're not emotional problems, they're directional ones. You're pulling in different directions. Now, some of you might be thinking, we don't really fight at all. And that might feel reassuring, but I want to gently push back on that. Not fighting doesn't mean you're aligned. It might just mean that you haven't had the real conversations yet, the ones about where this is actually going, what you both actually want. If that's you, dare to have those conversations. You'll find out very quickly which camp you're in. Some of you might now be thinking, great, we fight about all these things, which means we are too different. The pragmatic aspects of our relationship aren't working either. Does that mean your avoidant partner will never fully commit to you? It's not that simple. Look at Gabriel and me. We did want different things, yet here we are 15 years later, more committed than ever. How is that possible? People change. We used to want different things. At the time, we were stuck in an on and off relationship. But by the time I was ready to put my foot down, by the time I could no longer tolerate the uncertainty, Gabriel had gotten enough of a chance to experience the joy of swiping through dating apps to feel like he'd gotten it out of his system. He got to shop around and evaluate his options, and I was willing to stick around long enough for our pragmatic goals to align too. In the real world, no couple is a perfect match. Everybody has conflicts. Everybody wants slightly different things. You don't need to be identical. You only need to be heading in more or less the same direction and to have a willingness to meet in the middle. So, what does this mean for you and your relationship? If your pragmatic goals are more or less aligned, you don't need to worry. Your relationship is not doomed. What you're dealing with is an attachment dynamic, and that's something that can change. Avoidance can and do commit. They can and do grow. Gabriel is proof of that. The hot and cold, the 1 foot out of the door, that's noise. If your values and life goals are pointing in the same direction, the universe has a way of bringing two people together despite all of that. So stop trying to decode every text and every silence. Look at the bigger picture instead. Relax, get a life, and set some boundaries. But if you keep coming back to the same differences about the life you each want to live, then I want to say something that might be hard to hear, but that I genuinely believe is an act of kindness. There's nothing worse than being stuck in a relationship where two people are pulling in opposite directions. Not for you and not for them either. You'll both end up feeling disappointed, unfulfilled, and resentful, not because either of you is a bad person, but because you simply want different things. No amount of love, patience, or compromise will change what someone fundamentally wants from life. It doesn't mean you're not enough or that there's something wrong with either of you. You both are who you are and you want what you want. Neither of you should have to give that up. For me personally, admitting that we wanted different things gave me the strength to walk away, to end the push and pull cycle. And ironically, it gave Gabriel the urgency to finally make up his mind about us. So let me bring this all together. There are two aspects of relationships: the emotional side and the pragmatic side. Avoidants struggle to be in touch with their feelings. Because of this, they're more likely to stay in relationships where their pragmatic values and goals are aligned with their partners. You don't need perfect alignment. Nobody has that. But a shared direction, similar values, compatible life goals, the sense that you're building toward the same thing, even if you're not moving at the same pace. If your conflicts are mostly emotional, communication, closeness, feeling heard, you're dealing with an attachment dynamic. That's workable. Don't let it convince you the relationship is broken. If your conflicts keep circling back to the fundamentals, how you want to live, what you want to build, where you're each headed, that's worth taking seriously. Not as a verdict, but as key information. And if you're not sure, have the real conversations, the ones you've been avoiding. You'll find out quickly where you and your partner actually stand. People change, goals shift. Gabriel and I are proof of that. Misalignment at one point in time doesn't define the final outcome, but both people have to be willing to move towards each other. And sometimes the most loving thing you can do is accept when that isn't happening. You deserve a relationship that doesn't require you to abandon what you want, and so does your partner. Now, knowing all of this is one thing. Actually having those conversations, the real ones about where you're headed, that's another. Because if you've ever tried to bring up these topics with an avoidant partner, you know how quickly it can go sideways. Say the wrong thing and they shut down. Push too hard and they pull away. And suddenly, a conversation that was supposed to bring you closer turns into another fight, another withdrawal. This is exactly what we tackle inside our program, Attach and Avoidant. We'll walk you through not just what to talk about, but how to have these hard conversations in a way your avoidant partner can actually hear. For example, we have an entire chapter dedicated to navigating the marriage and kids talk, one of the most loaded conversations you can have with an avoidant. We break it down into specific do's and don'ts. Things like, instead of saying, "Do you even want this?" or "Either you want this or you don't," which will send most avoidants straight into a wall, you learn to ask things like, "What about it worries you?" or "Are you afraid of being trapped?" Such small shifts in language can completely change how the conversation goes and where it leads. Because the goal isn't to pressure your avoidant into a corner. The goal is to actually find out where they stand and to give them enough safety to tell you the truth. If that's something you want help with, the link to Attach and Avoidant is in the description below. So let me go back to the question I started with. What did Gabriel's ex have that I didn't? The answer is nothing. She wasn't better than me. She wasn't more lovable, more attractive, or more worthy of commitment. She and Gabriel just happened to want the same thing at the same time. That was it. That was the whole difference. And now you have a much better question to ask. Not what does someone else have that I don't, but do we actually want the same life? That's the question that matters. That's the one worth sitting with. And if you want to hear an avoidance confession on this topic, check out my husband's video on emotional infidelity. I'll link it right here.